Resuming debate.
The honourable member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. I will share my time with the member for Mégantic-L'Érable, and I will use my portion of the time to ask a series of questions. So new small businesses that were at the pre-revenue stage prior to the pandemic have been systematically excluded from the government's programs, and this has been widely acknowledged, including by officials. So do these estimates fix that problem facing new businesses that were established right at the beginning of the pandemic?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you for the question, Madam Speaker. And I have had exchanges with the member opposite about this issue. When we created the emergency relief programs, our immediate objective was to support the businesses who were up and running, who had no choice but to try to keep going when the pandemic hit. We absolutely understand the particular situation faced either by businesses that have been created since the pandemic or businesses that were on the verge of launching when the pandemic started. I will finish in the next. I realize my time has run up, but...
Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Right. I only need a yes or no here. Do the estimates contain any provision for relief of new small businesses? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
The Bill C-30 and the budget contains a huge amount of support for all Canadian small businesses. Let me start with the digital adoption program, which is going to be a huge productivity boost. And let me also talk about the tax incentive.
Honourable Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
But is there anything for businesses that have been excluded from the relief program so far? That's what I'd like to know, if the Minister can answer that question, please.
The Honourable Minister.
Well, the question was, are there measures to support new businesses? And in fact, in the budget, there are so many measures to support all small businesses across the country. I spoke about the digital adoption scheme. Let me talk about an essential tax measure that will encourage businesses to invest in themselves, and I'll finish discussion of that.
The Honourable Member.
So a small business that does not meet the criteria of the wage subsidy or rent subsidy, is there anything that will allow these businesses to survive and pay their immediate bills?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, let me just finish talking about this tax measure, because I think it is one of the most productivity-enhancing measures in the budget. For the next 3 years, businesses will be able to count as a tax expense up to $1.5 million of investment in themselves in each of those 3 years. All Canadian businesses can do that.
Honourable Member.
Right. So businesses that spent all of their savings building a plant or a restaurant or a store with a grand opening date of March, they still do not receive eligibility for the rent subsidy, the wage subsidy, and will they be eligible for the new higher subsidy as well?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And let me just say, I think it absolutely makes sense that businesses that were already up and running, who had no choice but to continue, those have been the priority of our government support measures, and I think that is absolutely right. I absolutely agree with the member opposite that we need to have continued support for all Canadian businesses into the recovery, and this budget makes unprecedented investments in small businesses that will do exactly that.
Honourable Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
All right, the estimates include $81.5 million for my tax to administer a small business internship program. That's included in these estimates. How was my tax chosen?
The Honourable Minister.
My tax, Madam Chair, is a very reputable, long-standing Canadian government program that has done tremendous work in supporting innovation in the Canadian economy.
Honourable Member.
I certainly don't disagree, but that wasn't my question. I asked how they were chosen. Maybe specifically, was there an open bid process, or by what criteria were specific criteria was my tax chosen?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Chair, some measures in the budget, like the continued support of MyTax, are continuations and further investments in existing highly successful programs. I think that is the right approach to take, particularly in this urgent moment when we all need to devote our attention to the recovery. And that's the approach we've been taking here, to take a program that is already working and to double down on it.
The honourable member.
She could just answer the question. If there was an open bid process, this was announced as a new program, so this was not a continuation of an existing government program.
The honourable minister.
As I said, Madam Chair, this is a tried and tested, well-known Canadian program, and it is absolutely right in this budget, when we need to invest in innovation, to use systems that work.
Honourable member.
All right, still not an answer. Most lenders require, so a new question. Typically, a lender will require a business that owns property to have a separate company hold the land, particularly if there's a mortgage involved. The lender will insist on that. This creates a problem and makes it impossible for these businesses to qualify for the rent subsidy. Has that problem, which has been well identified, has that been addressed or changed as part of these estimates or the BIA?
The honourable minister.
Madam Speaker, the rent subsidy is one of the big success stories of our government's efforts to support Canadian businesses throughout the pandemic. And let me remind the member of how many businesses have been supported through that program. 182,000 businesses across the country have benefited from the rent subsidy.
Honourable member for a last question.
Good thing the opposition was there to get them to make the changes that were necessary to actually create a successful program, but she still didn't answer the question. Have they fixed the problem under which a business cannot access the rent subsidy if they have their business separated into an operating and a holding company, which is required in any commercial financing?
Honourable Minister, 5 seconds.
I have a lot of respect for the member opposite, especially late at night, but he's got to get his line straight. Either he's going to claim credit for the rent subsidy and say it's great, or he's got to criticize it. But he can't have it both ways, Madam Chair.